Every so often, there's a tool that you get into that just, it's kind of like this. It looks like a gun? I don't know. You hold it like this, and you just feel like you got power. You got real power, and you can cut anything. Oh man, look at how fast that bad boy took that out of there. I love that saw. Hi and welcome back. This is a Ryobi reciprocating saw. Also sometimes a lot of the trade people call it the Sawzall. There's been a couple different names I've heard for it, but this one's battery operated. And I like it because it's so portable. It's not going to last long, especially on a small battery like that. And you can get various types of blades for it. This is a great tool because this is what I call a crossover. In a wood shop, there's a dozen jobs you can come up on where something like this can get a job done really quickly. But you can also take it out in the garden and cut and trim some small trees and branches with it. And it doesn't stop there. This thing is absolutely awesome because if you get into it where you have to cut metal, usually wood tools don't cross over into metal tools. This baby does, because then you can get a metal cutting blade and go at it, cut some metal with it. So they have a lot of great functions. This one here, I took it apart and I used lithium grease on all the gear parts and stuff inside, and even greased up the motor bearings a little bit in it. And that way, that baby goes crazy when I hit that trigger. Now, it's not going to last long. That's probably about the only drawback. It's not going to last you all day long, but then you probably shouldn't be using something like this all day long, or if you are, I'd kind of be wondering what you're doing. But the tool has a lot of flexibility, and it can cut things, not just lumber. You can get into metals, and you can cut just about, well, a number of different materials. Plastics, same thing. A lot of times when you're cutting plastic, I found that wood tools can just shatter plastic and it'll fly all over the place. This guy here, generally you can get into even some thin or certain types of plastics, and you can go nicely down through and slice whatever piece of plastic or something you have. And the blade is what makes a lot of the saw. The other thing that happened, and this is why this came up, was somebody was looking at one of these and wouldn't buy it because there was no key with it. And I know what he was talking about was the old style key where you had like a little Allen key and you had to lock the blade in. This particular model here has a switch right here, and you just lift up on the switch and you take the blade out. So that's a nice feature, but it does have a drawback. Now, as the machine gets a little older, I've had the blade actually come loose and actually come out of here while using it. And if you're using it on something heavy, the blade gets stuck in the wood, and all of a sudden you've got to go find a tool to pull the blade back out, put it back in the saw, and go back to cutting. But other than that, these are really neat. And because it's battery, it's so portable, you can take it, like I said, outside and go cut a couple tree branches or something like that if you have to trim something. What's better than that? Well, if you really have to have it, I like that saw so much, I had to have this one. This is the corded model. This is a Ridgid. And this one has the same feature with just lifting the button here to lock your blades in and out, which is great because you don't have anything else to lose. But this is heavy, and of course, being corded, you're going to have a supply. But the power of this one is really what for me makes this saw really spectacular. And you can go out and get different blades. This is a Milwaukee blade, the torch. The torch blade's not bad. It's not as much of a torch as I thought it would be, but you can cut metals down with it. And if you get into a situation where you have to cut a piece of wood, you can also get nice elongated wood blades that will go in the saw. So I really love this saw because they're a crossover. You can cut different things with them. And this particular model is a little on the heavy side. Now, DeWalt, Milwaukee, Ridgid, Everybody seems to pretty much have a nature of one of these saws out there. I bought the Ridgid for two reasons. It was on sale. Always a good reason to buy. And the other thing was it just has a good brand name. I really do like Ridgid tools. I find they're a little pricey usually, so the quality is very, very good. Now let's get back to this inexpensive one. Well, relatively inexpensive, but very portable. So you can go out and just, and just hammer away and just cut whatever you need to cut. And this saw is by Diablo, this blade. And the blade, this particular blade, I really like this particular blade because it just seems to cut anything. It's like, okay, that's bothering me and I need to cut that off, or I need a little notch or something. Even a small wood notch or something, a lot of times I'll just use this blade and just say, you know what, I'll just cut it with this and be done with it. Very rough cutting kind of a finish, I guess. You can get into some very fine blades, and I have a few here in my box that I keep that have a very fine tooth to them. And if you're wanting to try to notch a piece of wood out, or like this particular blade I just picked up, man, listen to this thing. It'll cut rebar and metal pipe. Wow. That's awesome. For a wood tool that can cross over into metal and have blades that, cut different materials, this is kind of a unique item. If you were thinking about one, you don't have one, you might want to, maybe refocus or think about it particularly for your applications, because in a shop as mine, where I tackle wood, but I also get into metal projects, something like this is a great item, and it saves me a lot of time and a lot of frustration where I have to cut a piece of metal all of a sudden, and I'm just like, the reciprocating saw, the Sawzall, Sawzall, yeah, because it saws just about all of it, or anything, Great tool. And the Ryobi, low quality, lots of vibration, not a lot of power because it is battery operated, this particular one. So if you do get one, I actually recommend too, get one with the battery, because they're great for portability, getting out there on the job, but also get a corded model, and it can be any of those good brand names. But what a great saw, what an awesome tool when it comes to just something that crosses over, that can do various projects and even take on some really large ones. I've also done some docks out, piers out over the water. I've done work with these saws on piers and cutting and doing the wood with these. And again, same thing on treated lumber or something. Great, chuck a blade in and just cut that bad boy, and it's a done deal. Man, hey. Thanks for stopping by this week at Coffee and Tools. Yeah, no projects this week, but we've got lots of projects coming up. And your wife will even like you when you go out to the garden and say, oh, that branch there, gone, and you just take it down. So, great item. Hey, thanks for watching Coffee and Tools.